The United States right now is going through its kind of UFO phase where the public is popping up to the notion that they're a ball hurtling through space and it's not God that just has us in this kind of magic of Oz, at least not that we're aware of from a corporeal standpoint. And that as we look out to the moon and to Mars and to our celestial neighbors, and we have these resource needs and everything else, that there may be other beings that have those needs, or for that matter, other beings that even have this kind of impetus to want to know, to want to explore. Who knows what the impetus is? But if they're anything like us, that have the ability of agency within the context of this and mental powers that can be put to bear to build certain machines that can do X or to do Y, then those beings may have the capacity to get here, especially if they're older than we are. That's something that the United States right now is studying, and that Congress is being made aware of by some of the videos and some of the hair-raising commentary, apparently, that they're getting in the briefings. But this is not the first time that this has taken place. In Brazil, 1977, there was this is everything I'm about to say here is real. Operation Saucer. Now, Operation Saucer was the Brazilian military, their Air Force's investigation into a UFO incident in the city of Colares. It's a Brazilian city of Colares. Now, the residents in that city claimed that they were being attacked by aliens. It was so bad that the military basically was dispatched to the area to do the investigation. They came out with 2,000 military report, 500 photographs, 16 hours of film that the FAB, the Brazilian Air Force, basically came out with. And that's not the half of it. It's the commentary from the people who are in charge there, not to mention the things that they did release. It's utterly and entirely astonishing. Basically, the residents claimed they were being attacked by UFOs, and the military, for all intents and purposes, backed it up. Astonishing case that we're going to talk about. Welcome to the soapbox. Hey, I'm here at Mount Shasta. We're at the UFO convention. We're skywatching at this point, hoping to see something. Keep your eyes peeled. I love that so much. You have no idea how much I love that. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support this content. PayPal, Patreon, all that good stuff. Like I said, this content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity, or you giving me the opportunity to do it. This case is mind-blowing. And this is one of those cases where they investigated. It is in the Brazilian records at this point. So it's not necessarily something where it's dodgy camouflage documents where people don't necessarily know where they're coming from. No, these are coming from the Brazilian government itself. And so this operation existed. Let's step into it. So Operation Saucer was a name given. Some of the stuff that they were seeing, because it wasn't just the residents of the island, it was also the military when they were there, who took video, who took pictures, who took drawings, took all of this information and all of this evidence. Some of the stuff is basically still locked away. But some of the stuff has come out. So you have craft that are flying treetop, that are zapping people. Now, the way that people describe it, they said these are bright objects, kind of just like this object right here. Sometimes it was coming out of the water. Sometimes it was, several of these, a lot of them. But they would zap the residents. And the residents would make the point. So that right here, several witnesses claim to have seen beings piloting the craft, describing them as no more than 3 to 4 feet tall. Bright objects, shapes, sizes, colors were said to be flying low altitudes, just a few meters above the treetops, and firing light beams at people on the ground. The beam gave the intense radiation that caused puncture marks and lesions, with some reporting to local media at the time that it felt like a heavy weight being pushed against their chests. Right here. A report into the claim made by the victim. The beam was about 7 to 8 centimeters in diameter and white in color. It never hunted for them, but hit them suddenly. When they tried to scream, no sound would come out, but their eyes remained open. The beam felt hot, almost like a cigarette burn. Now, this came out to be something known as a radiation burn. At least that was kind of the thought. People, hair would start to fall out. The symptoms of the people would, after being attacked or being hit by these beams, basically would resemble a radiation sickness or radiation poisoning. The lesion, looking like radiation injuries, began with an intense reddening of the skin in the affected area. Later, the hair would fall out, the skin would turn black. There was no pain, only a slight warmth. One only noticed small puncture marks in the skin. The victims were men, women of varying ages without any particular pattern. The sauces were quickly dubbed chupa chupa, meaning sucker sucker. And this is what they described. I mean, at a certain point, like I said, they got video and pictures, so they didn't necessarily need to describe. They could see it for themselves. But this is basically what the residents were describing. Some officers reported UFOs in the coastal waters nearby. Some reported coming out. With no reasonable explanation offered as to why exactly with no reasonable explanation offered as to what exactly was behind the so-called attacks from UFOs, the Brazilian Air Force, FAB, was tasked with finding out what was going on the island with the investigation officially named Operation Saucer. A 2,000-page military report was soon compiled featuring 500 photographs, 16 hours of film that the FAB reportedly witnessed with their own eyes. Documents were kept classified until several pages were released in 2004 showing drawings and photographs of what the military saw. Again, not the residents, what the military saw. You must understand, as the military was doing this, they were freaked the fuck out. The military are just human beings doing a job. And in the pursuit of doing that job, they were seeing things that was freaking them out. Initially, they weren't talking. The people were tight-lipped. But the guy who was running that program talked. The guy talked. He went to a UFO magazine and he spilled his guts. And I'm going to get to that. However, high-ranking officials from FAB reportedly told a group of ufologists in 2004 that they had been discreetly studying the existence of UFOs since 1950s. Fair enough. Captain, this name right here. Captain Uregi Bolivar Solares Nogueira de Holanda Lima, the commander of the operation, gave an interview in 1997 to UFO magazine where he recounted how terrifying his men were during the investigation. I suppose those are puncture marks that were in skin based on what was taking place, meaning the people being shot. And honestly, right here, he went on to reveal eyewitness statements which describe residents waking up to beings wearing protective clothing, shooting colored beams at their heads, as well as several officers reported seeing strange lights emerging from and diving back into the coastal waters in the area, leading some to believe that the location of the UFO base. 3 months after giving the interview, Captain Hollander was found dead in his home after he had hung himself, apparently, using the belt of his bathrobe. That's not weird at all. That's not weird at all. He says people were freaked out by it. And again, it's not like this random trucker saw this or this random guy saw this. It's the military came to investigate because people were being shot by laser beams with UFOs. The military goes and the military sees the UFOs, sees the people shot by laser beams, sees the puncture marks, takes pictures of the puncture marks, takes pictures of the UFOs, take the drawings of what the individuals were seeing there and what the individuals were describing. And they themselves were seeing pretty much the same thing. They put that stuff in a 2,000-page report. Some of it was released, some of it wasn't. Considering they have all of that video included, yeah, I would imagine that this is one of those credible cases that gets across that something weird was taking place. Now, whether that was something that was taking place from, let's say, Brazil's own, I don't know, black operation, or let's say the U.S. had a base there or something like that that was running black operations. Who knows? Is it possible? Maybe, I suppose. I mean, I don't know what the level of technology that would be necessary to do what they were doing. But the colored lights and everything else, this was back in the 70s. So I'm not quite sure what we had in our arsenal at that particular point to even do anything close to what they're talking about. But nevertheless, this was investigated. The information is there. And I don't know if the Brazilian government was working with the U.S. at some point or not. I suppose they were. But in this very specific case, this was legit. Weird. Very weird. But definitely legit. I want to say like, I want to say share, and I want to say subscribe. Thanks all.